All right, guys, have all of the auction platforms like Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer, P-Car Market, are they all just broken? Oh my gosh, wait till you hear what's going on with some of them. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube card game show. All right, we're getting started. Hello, everyone. My name is John Polnick, and this is Bid Nerds. I'll be your host tonight, along with my partner, Michael Deeb. I'm coming to you live from the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, whereas my partner, Michael Deeb, over there, he's all the way over there in San Francisco, and I just broke my pen. What's up, Michael Deeb? How you doing tonight?
Yeah, we don't even need to be in Vegas anymore. We have our own amazing car show out here. Quick shout out, JP. I know you are just continuing to kill it in Vegas with your show and the Good Wolf as your host venue. But man, me and Sean Manchester from Pacino Coffee Bar absolutely crushed it today. What a turnout. Just to look in the camera and thank all those new people who came out sort of for the first time. You know who you are. I got to speak to almost all of you. All these great photographers are showing up, JP. I'm feeling like kind of impotent. I mean, important. So yeah, it was really, really great. I honestly, JP, since we moved across the Golden Gate Bridge today, I think was easily the biggest show. The numbers will make you laugh, but 45, 50 cars today. It was really crowded and a lot of Porsches. I love all you guys. Thanks for coming out. We had a great time. How was yours? What was the cool car you saw today that you didn't know was in Vegas? Because there's always one at yours over the last 7 years that you've been doing it. There's always a car that unearths.
It's true. There's always something new and fresh. And yeah, shout out to everyone who braved there's the Rock and Roll Marathon is happening this week too.
Is that on the Strip?
It is.
They run down the Strip?
Yeah, it goes on the Vegas Strip, and it goes through the Arts District, and it goes through downtown. So, like, for me to get out of my building and go all the way around, so everyone there was road closures everywhere. I was like, nobody's coming. Plus, there was a DE day out at the track up at Spring Mountain, so half the Porsche guys were out at that, but we still had a packed courthouse. The whole block was full. It was a great turnout, and the weather in Vegas right now is just unbelievable.
Perfection.
So, yeah. So, Cars and Cafe was definitely a hit in both cities. We need to expand. We need some more Cars and Cafes in other cities. We need to get some people to start doing it in some other places, right?
That's you, Mauricio. We're talking to you, Mauricio. I know you're watching. Come on, man. And how about Idaho? I think the Spud Syndicate would definitely come out for a Cars und Cafe, which would be amazing. So JP, amazing weather in Vegas makes you want to sell that slant nose of yours and get you a convertible.
That is true. I would very much. It's perfect convertible weather right now, but it's perfect air cooled weather too. But anyways, enough about car shows, guys. This is a car show on YouTube, right? What we do here is we pick the most interesting cars from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, and we analyze the listings, we make predictions, and we always reconcile our predictions from the previous episode. That's how we like to start things off. But tonight I wanted to just kind of there seems to be some scoop going on right now. These auction platforms, it just seems like Bring a Trailer gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the other platforms, a lot of them have come and gone already. We saw Radwood, and that's been years since they've come and gone. Stratus and Marks from Porsche, they were there for a year or two.
What was the one that was on the Canadian border that we did for a little while? What was the name of that one?
Was it Shift? Was there for a while? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
And it seems like the original three players are still kind of the ones. Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, and P-Car Market of all guys. But boy, Cars and Bids, what's going on there, Deeb? What did you find out last week?
Well, I not much more than what we talked about on the last show, which was very brief. God bless you, JP. But they culled their staff tremendously. So in January, I understand they've got a new, let's call it a CEO. I'm not in the office, so I don't want to give the guy the wrong title or gal, whomever it might be, and walked in the door and said, I'm not going to make any changes right away. I'm going to observe what we're doing. And now here we are at the end of February, and the changes have come 5 weeks into this person's tenure, and they let go of somewhere between a third and half of their workforce. There are conflicting sort of inside reports as to how many employees are in the room, but not a lot left. And so whoever's left at Cars and Bids at the moment is easily doing 2 or 3 jobs, and that's just, man, that's so tough on the workforce and everybody involved. So, I look, we want them to remain. We can criticize Doug for his bad sensibilities and his, poor taste or whatever in shorts and t-shirts. But we like having them around, and we like people having a choice, and we like being, role players playing their role. If you're selling an old Alpha, you're going to go to BAT, but if you're selling a Rivian or a Jeep, you're going to look for that car at Doug DeMiro's site. And so, they kind of need to be there. And so, I don't like to see anybody lose their position. And two people that you and I know pretty well now, John, have lost their jobs at Cars and Bids. And, I'm no longer with Haggerty, and Stratus is a distant memory. And our friends at Marked are some people that are Marked are still at Marked, but their auction site doesn't remain. And that's a bummer that product didn't.
Well, okay.
Really
Yeah.
fly.
I mean, it's like, we care about our friends, and we're bummed that but the question is, it's like, is the business model broken? Does this model just not work? Like, why? What? I mean, I don't understand why anyone thought it was a good idea to put $37 million into Cars and Bids. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of math. How much money are they generating on any given month? You just look at how many cars they're selling. If they're selling, what is it, a dozen cars a day? I mean, even if they're making $1,000 a car, selling a dozen cars a day times, what would that be? 20 days a week, right? Because they only go 5 days. They don't go 7 like BAT does. How much revenue is that for a month? That's $20,000, right? On a month. How many months do you got to operate just to get to zero for $37 million? You got to be in business for years. It boggles the mind. I always thought that Cars and Bids would do better, and I think the reason why they're still around at all is because, unlike a lot of the other platforms, like Shift and Marked and Mercedes-Benz and stuff like that, all those guys, in order to get anyone to know that they existed, they had to go out and advertise. And advertising is expensive and difficult. Whereas Doug DeMiro has a massive YouTube channel, right? So he has millions of subscribers, and every single week he publishes at least a couple of videos or more, and all those videos get tens of thousands, if not millions of views. So he has a vehicle to advertise his platform and attract buyers and sellers to his platform. I would have figured by now, going 4 or 5 years in, that he would have had way more traction. But it seems like instead of expanding and getting better and better and better, it seems like they've contracted and are getting worse and worse and worse. They're getting fewer cars. And then did you get the email over the weekend, I think it was, or maybe it was on Friday? They sent out an email to everyone saying that they're raising the buyer premium. So they're going to try to take more money, and their buyer premium was capped at, I think, $400. Now it's like $595 or something. They raised it it was from 4.5% to 5%. So they're trying to get more money per listing. They want more money for 2 lists. I mean, it's just like, guys, you're rearranging, chairs on the
Titanic.
On the Titanic. Yeah. It's way too little too late for that nonsense. I think the problem is, and before I get to what I think Cars and Bids problem is, P-Car Market, everyone goes, well, they're so sketchy, and they're always, you guys are always ripping on them, talking about how terrible they are. But the one thing P-Car Market did is they advertised early, so they got a little piece of the market early. And they didn't have to spend a lot of money on advertising, but it was just enough to kind of get their foot in the door in that Porsche niche, which worked, right? But on top of that, they have an actual brick and mortar dealership. Those guys are going to be, if P-Car Market as a platform went away, they'd still have a business there. Cars and Bids, it doesn't have a car lot, right? They don't, they do have a studio somewhere, but that's basically Doug DeMiro's man cave where he hides from his family or whatever, and does whatever crazy things he does when the employees go home. Can only imagine. Epstein list. So I think Cars and Bids is just, come on, for real, Doug DeMiro, look at him. Do you think he's not on the Epstein list? Oh. If there was ever a poster child for a guy, all right, I'm going off on a tangent way too far off on that one, but
registered offender. Yeah.
Right. You see him move in next door, he's going to come and introduce himself and have you sign a little piece of paper. paper. So you
Yeah.
just thought I'd say hello and let you know that you need to sign this. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's no excuse for them not to have gotten way, way, way bigger. Cars and Bids, I think, is just such a massive fail. And honestly, Deep, I think it's what you and I have been saying from the absolute get-go. It's 100% Doug DeMuro's fault. He has a top-down aesthetic. It is his company. It is his brand. And everyone thinks of him as a sketchy, weird-looking weirdo dude. He has no aesthetic. And you can tell when you look at the ads, there's from the top down, there's no one going, that ad cannot have a dumpster in the background. There's no quality control. Doug DeMuro is happy going out in public with a Band-Aid on his head and you know, just he literally looks like a street person sometimes. And he's totally fine with that. And he's trying to sell $1 million cars next to a Miata with a crooked bumper or something like that. It's unacceptable. And I think I think, how long do you give Cars and Bids? Are they going to make it through the year?
Who knows, JP? The big changes, I say they do. I think they last through the year. I think P-Car is in bigger trouble than Doug DeMuro's is.
Yeah.
Doug's making changes to try and appeal to their investors, but there's still money in the bank and the lights are still on and they're still running a dozen cars a day. So I think they'll last the year. But hopefully they step their game up. Come on, man. Like let's try harder. And then, yeah, man, let's get to some cars.
Well, BAT sure doesn't seem to be slowing down. They are the juggernaut. With all that said, we covered some cars from the last episode. Let's get to it. Let's talk about the results. What was the first car we had on the list?
All right. A quick shout out to Philip Richter, who's watching from Turtle Garage. Thank you for being a new listener and he's in the comments. Please welcome him, everybody. Say hi to Phil Richter.
Are you sure he's a new listener? Because you don't seem to know who's new and who's been there for OG all the time.
Not my words. I'm borrowing those words from Chris Carbine.
Smart.
So if Chris
Follow
says
Chris's lead, very smart.
If Chris says he's a new listener, then he's definitely a new listener. So thank you, Philip. Welcome to the show. Everybody say hi. All right, JP. Last show we opened up our Halo car that we are going to circle right back to is on Bring a Trailer. It is a 1964 Porsche 356 Carrera 2 GS Coupe with a replacement motor, but an older sort of mechanical refresh and an older repaint. But a lot of pieces on this car are still original, like that interior. And John, this is just like, I'm not a huge 356 fan. I love the look and the idea of one, but I will not be ashamed to say I really want to go fast. And these cars technically aren't fast. But of all the 356s that Porsche made, this might be the fastest. The Carrera 2 has a 2-liter, and then it is a 4-cam motor. There are twin cams on each half of the cylinder. And these things make a respectable like 130 horsepower, and they can be upgraded for there. But JP, this car looks so handsome in an off-white repaint with that gray leatherette interior and that sort of brownish gold corduroy inserts. The Steelies and the driving lights and the extra louvers in the back that denote it as a Carrera 2. These are very, very special cars. And John, Porsche did not make a lot of them. Approximately 101 Carrera 2 GS models. I don't know enough about these to tell you what the difference between a GS and a non-GS is. But they only made 100 of these between 63 and 65. This car was delivered new to Germany, spent some time, and then was purchased in Italy in 2014 and then imported to the United States and went through the refish however many years ago. But here it is, JP, out of West Anvil, Pennsylvania. Now, we talk about values for these being in the $500,000 and up, and we wondered how a car that has been refreshed but has a replacement engine would fare. And I really thought that it would be impervious to the engine change because of how rare the model is. So, JP, our friends at Classic.com say that these cars typically bring about the GSs $521,000. I thought this car was good for a little more than that. My bid was $535,600. JP, you took the way underneath me by $100,000, and your number was $435,600. John, your bid was more on the money than mine. Our car hammered at $465,000 on 30 bids, where it sold. And my first take is that if this car hammered for less than $500,000, it wouldn't sell. So, JP, we've talked about this slow decline in the market. We haven't seen much of a bull run or anything from the stock market since the last president was sworn in. Um, we know the market is down. I thought that how handsome this car is, how beautifully it's presented in these images, and the quality and the condition of the car, and how rare the model is, that $500,000 would easily be in play, and that anything under $500,000 would easily be pushed aside. This is a very realistic seller that not only did his car hammer for well under what I thought it would be worth, but he accepted that number to move the metal. Are you surprised by the result in that context?
356s, I'm with you. They're beautiful and we all love them, but they're not a car that's super high on the list for guys that are our age or younger. And let's face it, we're the ones, it's boomers are not the ones that are setting the market anymore. It's now Gen X and millennials. And this just wasn't the car that was on our wall when we were kids. We're going to look at some results of other cars that we talked about on the last episode. And I think because I want to look at this and say, and, be a curmudgeon like I always am and say, oh, the economy's going to shit. It's now, the sky is falling or whatever. But I just don't think the evidence is there. I think it's just that 356s are just kind of going, I think just the long-term, investment in one of these just may not be the best place to do it. I think young timers want cars from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And this car, sure, it's from the 60s, but it's more of a 50s car. I mean, this really is peak boomer right here for a Porsche person. And I know that like Rod Emery still makes them cool and stuff like that, but it's just these cars are not in the zeitgeist, I feel like. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, when was the last time you saw a 356 coupe in a movie? Speedsters still pop up all over the place. But these coupes, was this a B coupe or no? This is a C coupe. They just don't have that sex appeal to them. They look like a neat Beetle, and they're beautiful, but they're just not. Yeah. Anyways, that's my take on it. What do you guys think? Has the time for 356s passed? Would you invest in one of these long term? Do you, like Deep, think that this is actually well bought? And maybe in the spring, is there a good chance that we will see this car for sale again? Maybe in the spring at one of the auctions over the summer, and someone might make some money. Huh? What do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting, JP. If you would ask me a couple of years ago, because the next car we're going to talk about is this 95 Ferrari 512. If you would ask me a few years ago, would be the better investment, I would have said 356 with a Carrera motor would more quickly become $1 million car than the Ferrari. And, a few years later, JP, and I don't think that's the case. I still think the future is bright for a Carrera. But as you said, the people who have been setting the market for this car have been boomers. The boomers do not dominate the market as much anymore, if at all. And the Carrera 2 is certainly not on the young timers wish list. So really great take that I wish I could smash and kick back in your face, but I agree with you 100%. Is it well bought at that number? Sure, you can go out and have fun with it. But man, I just don't know if I believe in it to be the investment we once did.
Yep. All right, let us know what you guys think of the 356, and let's move on. We made a prediction on another really cool car from the last episode. This is definitely a young timer. What do we got, Deep?
All right, so we're going to check right in on that aforementioned 1995 Ferrari F512M. This is a European specification car that was brought into the U.S. I don't know what year it was brought in, a couple of years ago, by the selling dealer in 2024. The timing belt was done in 2022. But JP, the big thing here is they only made 501 examples for the world in 1995 of the F512M, making it a particularly rare car. And I said 1995, but they made F512Ms between 94 and 96. This one's a 95, and they only made 500 total. So 34,000 kilometers. That's just 21,000 miles. The car's on Bring a Trailer as a premium listing, so it's going to run 10, 11 days. I love these photos. They might not be the best photos to judge the paint in, but at least they sold the sex appeal of the car. It's kind of done in the right light to sort of, as we say sometimes, JP, selling the romance of having like a very swoopy, sexy, very Italian, very supercar-ish thing. I mean, I look at these photos and it gets me excited, which is really cool. Low miles, it's in San Diego. A reputable seller who knows what he's doing when it comes to this stuff. Symbolic International out of San Diego. I think they're technically in La Jolla. La Jolla, for those of you who didn't go to college. And then, so JP, here we go. Our friends at classic.com, they also like the F512M. They say that the cars on average sell for about $452,200. I really like this car because it's that black metallic. It's got the racing bucket seats that I don't think were homologated for the United States. And the cars are just rare in general. So I like this one. So JP, I pushed my number up to $512,000. I was surprised. I would have thought you liked this car more than me, but your bid came in a safe $30,000 under. JP, your bid was just $480,512. John, the audience liked this car. They fought over it. 40 bids to get to the hammer of $571,000, where, of course, the car sold. Are you surprised by that high watermark for a young timer? Because, JP, let's face it, that's nearly $100,000 over your number. Does that, I'm not surprised by that result. Even, like I said, when we talked about it on the last show, European Ferraris for sale in the U.S. used to be the kiss of death. Yeah. That is not the case anymore. That the Euro heritage of this car, the fact that it was born somewhere else, technically this car could not be registered for road use on a California plate. You'd have to circumnavigate with a dealer plate or a Montana plate or a Washington plate. But European doesn't hang up Ferraris anymore, and that's a high watermark for the car. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it puts an exclamation point on the point that I made on the 356, that young timers are what's in right now. The people that have the money, before everyone wanted the older, Testarossa, the one that was on Miami Vice, but now the Miami Vice scene, I mean, that would be important to Gen Xers, but not to millennials. They see this car, and this car screams 90s, and that's what they want to be screamed at. That is the year set that they're all about. Whereas we're all about the 70s and 80s and stuff. So, where a lot of it, this is kind of like? This is kind of like the 964 of Ferrari Testarossas. I mean, it's still the same Ferrari Testarossa as the old one. It's just the updated with the kind of 90s stuff that used to be looked at as uncouth, but now that's what's in vogue. And I think it's just upside for these cars from here on out, at least for the foreseeable future. Your question was, am I surprised that it got $100,000 more than I bid? I'm really not. I'm glad to see it happen. Because the other side of it too is because everybody keeps, is the market soft? I'm like, it's not necessarily. It's kind of flat for stuff that's not special, but stuff that is special and stuff that fits right in there in that young timer world is still popping. I mean, because there's a lot of 40-somethings out there who have a bunch of money and are still looking for cool stuff. And let's face it, and the 50-something-year-old guys are kind of going, well, they already bought all the stuff. I think a lot of guys, a lot of Gen Xers are kind of shell-shocked because we were used to all this stuff being cheap, and then we saw it go crazy for a while, and we gobbled up the stuff that we wanted, going, I don't know if we're ever going to get a chance to get it again. And now it's just everyone's going, okay, what do we just, all right, fine, I'm out. I can't handle this. It's too much we need to take hard pressure medicine or something.
So you make that point and you're right on. So we had John Larner at Cars and Cafe, and I showed him that 964 with the hot rod 3.8 that we're going to be selling here on Bring a Trailer here coming soon. I showed him the car and I said, what do you think? And he goes, oh, I love it. He turned the car on and he blipped the throttle. He goes, oh, wow. And he was all impressed with the car. And I said, well, here's we're talking $150,000 or something for the car. What do you think? And he goes, absolutely not. He goes, I sold my last 964 for $48,000. He goes, I cannot wrap my head around $140,000, $150,000 for a 964. I'll never pay that. And of course, he'll go out and drop $300,000 on a Lambo, but he won't pay $150,000 for a 964 because he can't get past what they used to cost, which is just what you were saying. It's so funny. It's absolutely true. I sold my car. I sold it too soon, and now I can't buy it back, and I refuse to pay today's prices because that seems completely wrong, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Even though it's really it's the same money, it's just the money's worth less. The car's not worth more. That's really when it comes down to it.
Oh man,
You know, unfortunately.
I'll let you break it to him.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody's gonna get that $5,000 dividend. They're all gonna go out and buy their dream car. All right. Let's move on. What's the next car on the list?
All right, JP. And the car of the show last time, without a doubt, was this 33-year-old 1988 Alfa Romeo Spider Quadrifoglio that was a no reserve listing on Bring a Trailer last show. Our car was listed out of Millville, New Jersey, and showing just 56,000 miles on the odometer. But the real news here, JP, was just how rough this car was. Not the finest example we've seen come to market. And of course, they ran it no reserve. They are just done with this car. Make me an offer, and it's all yours. But the photos underneath tell a real unforgiving story. This car has had some salt in its day, and they didn't really do a good job cleaning it up for the auction. And it's just a really tired looking Alfa, and yet it's a model I appreciate and I like. But John, we didn't think this car was going to go very far, if at all. So JP, our friends at Classic.com say that the average 88 Quadrifoglio is a $12,000 conversation. I thought that our car would struggle to bring 7,500. You laughed at my number and then came in at $4,999, saying that it wasn't even worth $5,000. It was dead on arrival. Look at these photographs, JP. There is dirt on the carpets, like crumbs and stuff. Like, it's unbelievable. Shockingly, JP, our car got fought over, and it hammered for $11,111. Where, of course, running no reserve, it's sold on a whopping 39 bids. JP, I'm beginning to think that people don't even look at the photos before they bid. There's no way you want to own that car. Look at that shot right there that you actually stopped on that photo last time. You don't want to own this car for any price. You don't want to inherit this car when it looks like that underneath. And so this is the old adage when I was young, JP, and I'm sure you heard this too. A fool and his money will soon be parted. I was taking a really hard look at a Cayenne Trans-Siberia out of Pennsylvania, and I said, hey, there's no undercarriage photos. Will you send them to me? And the guy's like, yeah, we'll get on a lift and send them to you tomorrow. And he sent me a dozen photos, and every piece underneath the car was rusted. And I was like, you're kidding, right? Like, I'm like, I don't even want your car anymore. Not even if you took $10,000 off the price. Like, we're done. And so I walked away. And these people that fought over this car should have walked away. Whoever owns this, you kind of, is it dumb tax? Do we say, and I don't mean to be mean, but I'm just saying, you deserve this car because you didn't do your due diligence. This car is a result of the lack of effort you put into inspecting the purchase, right? Like, is that fair to say, or am I being a jerk, John?
This car to me represents a real opportunity. I think that, like you mentioned, our good friend John Lerner not being able to wrap his head around a 964 being worth more than $40,000. Look, people are looking for fun stuff that's not crazy unobtainable money. I mean, nobody wants spending six figures. Even when you have the money, you spend six figures on a car, you're just like, geez, a car. I'm driving it out on the road where there's people in Hyundais and Teslas, and they're all idiots out there. This particular Alfa, these have always been soft. They never bring a lot of money. And here's one that's an absolute piece of crap, and it brings $12,000, $13,000. I mean, you could go on Craigslist or Marketplace right now and find cars that are 10x better than this one for $7,000 or $8,000. I mean, do we just go and fill up a warehouse full of these and just start trickling them out on BAT? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that this proves that there's a hole in the market. There are people that want to have some fun. They want to they still want to be car enthusiasts, but they don't want to break the bank. They don't want just like to have all their kids' college funds in a freaking car. I mean, this is the way it used to be with 911s. You could go out and kind of buy a beater SC for 12, 13, 14 grand or whatever, drive it for a few years and have some fun with it, and then sell it for the same amount of money.
Or more.
Or more, right? Well, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly the way it's been the last few years. But these Alphas, maybe this is, and I've loved these cars. I had one. I've had multiples. I had one when I met my beautiful wife, and I keep threatening to get another one just to have it around, just because it's so nostalgic for me. But this one in particular, geez, guys, I mean, what the hell? Who spent that money? I just don't get it. What do you guys think of this Alpha? All the comments are everyone's just going, geez, what a pile of crap. And it was on BAT, and I guess that goes back to our original question: is are the auction platforms broken? Well, BAT sure ain't broken if it can get 12 grand for a piece of junk like this one. What would have happened if this car were on Cars and Bids? This car wouldn't have broken $3,000. It would have just languished, right? I mean, and I think and certainly P-Car Market wouldn't have sold it. It would have been in their deal tank for 20 grand or some ridiculous stupid number. But the fact that BAT can still sell stuff like this almost proves that yes, auction platforms are broken, because they're selling garbage to people now. This car, remember in the early days of BAT where this car wouldn't have been accepted?
Yeah.
Right? Someone would have submitted this car and BAT would have been like,
nope.
The assets aren't good enough, and the car itself is kind of a piece of junk. Maybe you need to just go sell this on Craigslist. Things have changed. All right, we are going to make some predictions. Thanks for hanging out with us while we go over the reconciling our predictions from the last episode. Stick around. We are just getting started. We'll be right back with new predictions right after this. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right, we are back, and it is time to make some predictions. I am excited about the cars we've got on the list. What's the first one that we're going to talk about, Mike Deep?
All right, JP, we're going to open tonight with a 2016 Alfa Romeo 4C Coupe that is showing just 3,400 miles from new, listed on Bring a Trailer out of Newbury Park, California by the reputable seller Wob. The car looks stunning, JP, in this, what do they call it? Something white tricoat paint. It looks really good with the sort of dark anodized color wheels, not anodized, but like anthracite metallic wheels and the red brake calipers. It's got red sport seats. JP, the 4C is often laughed at for being completely over engineered. We're talking about a complete carbon fiber monocoque chassis. This whole structure is built like a supercar, and then at the last minute, Alfa Romeo just drops in there like a little tiny 4-cylinder, 1.7 liter 4-cylinder turbo with a 6-speed dual clutch transmission. But they managed to coax, I don't say respectable, but just barely enough, around 240 horsepower and around 260 pound-foot of torque. These things absolutely, they fly. They're great little track cars. They handle really well. John, Alfa has stopped selling these cars in the United States, and I wanted to see if a low mileage example, something that's basically we would sort of say is in collector condition, are these cars going to start to go up in value? Are they going to hold their value? Are they going to become legitimately collectible now that you can't go down to the dealership and buy one new? John, it's worth mentioning that our car would have cost, let me see if the window sticker is here. Nope, they don't include it. Thanks for nothing, BAT. I think this car was in the $80,000 range, just based on what I remember from when they were new. So let's just call it 80 grand as a watermark. This car is presented with collectibly low miles. It's in nice condition. It's an attractive colorway. What's happening on the 4C market now that you can't get one new. So beautiful car, JP. I've sat in them a handful of times. I would like to own one, and if they're inexpensive, maybe now's the time to get one. I'd be curious to see if we can quantify if they're going up and down in value, but let's take a peek. JP, have you ever driven one? I'm sure, a lot of people have brought these to Cars and Cafe out in Vegas. Have you ever gone around the block in one of these things?
I have, not from Cars and Cafe, but these are terribly fun little cars, but they are disappointing. They are underpowered. The fact that they put that little 4-cylinder in here. Look, Lotus figured it out, man. The Lotus Elan, or not Elan, I'm sorry, the Lotus
Elise.
The Elise and the Exige and stuff like that. They had that small, teeny little, 2-seater, but it had 3 pedals, and that makes a small engine fun. If you're going to do the small engine thing in a small car, give us a simple 3-pedal car. You don't need flappy paddles. You don't need this high-tech stuff in these little, pocket racer type cars. Lotus kept doing it right when they came out with, the Evora, the next version. Mm-hmm. The car didn't look nearly as good, but could you imagine if the Evora looked as good as this car? I mean, because the Evora uses that V6 from a Toyota Camry. That's an inexpensive engine, but it's a bigger, better engine. Why didn't Alfa do something like that? Somewhere in Stellantis's one of the factories that of all the different cars, they couldn't find a 6-cylinder somewhere, something that had a little bit of displacement to wedge in the back of this darn thing that would have made it so much more fun. I get the flappy paddle thing, but put a stick in it and they would have sold the hell out of these. I mean, and then now with and I think what proves the point too is the Emira, the Lotus Emira is the Evora, but it looks good and it has a stick and it's a V6 and it's reliable and it just looks every bit as good as this car, but it's as good looking or better looking than this car, but it's 10 times more fun to drive. And that's the problem with this car. I think these cars are doomed long term because the flappy paddles and small engine, they are going to be fun. People are going to like them because they are beautiful. And I do like this colorway. It's neat. You usually see them in that kind of dark burgundy red color. But yeah, a white on red one looks really neat, looks great. But I think long term, I think these just don't have a lot of future to them. I think they'll hold, but it's not like people are going to be like, oh, nobody's going, oh, one day I'm going to get a 4C. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. I mean, JP, you talk to the Porsche independent repair facilities, and the dual clutch transmissions in early Macans are all starting to go out, and these are $25,000 to fix. If Alfa and everybody else is going to have that same problem as these cars round into 70, 80, and 100,000 miles when they're 10, 11, and 12 years old, then there is no collectible future for these cars, and they could truly be DOA. But for the time being, JP, this is a low mileage example of a car that has, only in the last couple of years stopped being sold in the United States. Let's see what the market looks like for these. So, JP, according to our friends at Classic.com, the Alfa Romeo 4C Coupes are bringing, on average, about $54,500. Our car doesn't close for 2 days. It's currently sitting at $38,000, and that comes to us by way of 12 bids. I think because this is a coupe, which I think is going to bring a little more money than the Spider, and the fact that it's super low miles, that this car still has a few things going for it. I also like the idea that it's just simply not red, whether it's their bright flat red or their metallic candy apple red, of which unfortunately I'm not a fan of. I think that this car should have a little bit more appeal. With that in mind, JP, I still don't think this car is going to break 60 grand. I don't know that the 4Cs are moving in the correct direction. So I'm going to say that it stays in the park. So while Classic says the average is 54, I think this car is going to do a little better than that. My bid to you, JP, is $59,000, 59000. What's your bid?
I like Philip's comment. He's like, what kind of secondhand Ferrari can you get for this kind of money? I think that's a good question. In the $50,000, $60,000 range, probably not a whole lot. You're probably looking at a Mondale or something like that. But, this car is going to be more reliable. Imagine that. But not going to be as fun. I'm going to take Philip's bid. I think he was at 55,555. So that's what I'm going to do since I stole his comment.
Wow, 55. And Gerd is over, and you didn't borrow from Gerd? I like that. Right? All right. You're definitely losing this one. Gerd is with me. Gerd's at 61. Gerd thinks it'll break 60. And if it does, I'm going to say it's because of the miles, or maybe it's because Gerd said it would. You know, it's like having Chuck Norris on the show, but there you go, JP. 55, 555. You're in the books. You're underneath me. You're going to lose. I'm going to win, and I'm going to buy an Alfa Romeo 4C. All right, here we go.
Well, hold on a second. So, yeah, I mean, I think we go back to the earlier conversation before the break. We were talking about what's hot right now, right? And I just don't think this car is special enough to be hot. I don't think we're looking at I don't think we're looking at records being broken on a car that's marginally liked. Right. I think when we see something like that amazing Ferrari Testarossa, the 512, the Euro with all the, you know, in its final way, that car is very special. And that car is something that is a dream car. And that is a car that people will spend all the money on. I think for $60,000, you get a lot of options out there for stuff that's better than this stupid little 4C. But I don't know. That's just me. We will see.
Yeah, the only 4C that's bringing real money, and the last one we covered on the show, John, you might remember, Alfa Romeo on the last year of the 4C Spider, they did the Alpha 33 tribute car with that, was a special red with the gold wheels and that like brown leather seat inserts or whatever it was. Those cars sold for like 85 or 88,000. And now we see the low mileage ones, the 1,200 and 1,400 mile cars are bringing six figures in the secondary market. Other than that, the rest of the 4C market is depreciating at a respectably slow pace, considering almost every other Alfa Romeo, they fall off a cliff. So we'll see what happens for the future. It could go either way, but if PDKs are breaking for everybody, then I think that this car is value. No matter how you buy one, you're going to buy it wrong because they're gonna just continue to drop. So we shall see. Yeah, there you go.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I called you over the weekend or a couple of days ago talking about things with sticks. You know, three-pedal cars are just continue to hold their value. And, you know, like I came across this like Ford F-150. It's like a 2008. That is nothing interesting at all, right? But it's like the cleanest one I've ever seen. It's got 60,000 miles on it. It's the most basic bitch. But it's got a 5-speed. It's got 3 pedals, air conditioning. It's immaculate. It looks like it has 5,000 miles on it. I'm like going, and it's priced about what you would expect a typical Ford F-150 with low miles would be, right? It's not ridiculously expensive. I'm just going, yeah, do I buy this and put some better wheels and tires on it and put it on BAT? It will someone pay double the money because it has the 3 pedals on a Ford F-150? I kind of want to make that experiment just to see if that'll happen. But what do you guys think? Should I try to flip an F-150 and make it cool? Is that possible?
JP, you're in Vegas, man. Roll the dice, bro.
Yeah, that's the thing about Vegas. Like 3-pedal cars don't sell well here. This is the one market in the entire country where the automatic stuff like
king.
Yeah, the Porsche store. You know, I'll never forget being told. I think it was Paul who was telling me, he was like, and you know, you probably remember this from being there too. When I do. You know, when the GT3s came out, the Dot 2s in the 991, and they were finally available with 3 pedals. Everywhere else in the country, it was, you know, 2 out of 3 were ordered with 3 pedals. But in Vegas, it was the other way around.
Yeah, 8 out of 10
crazy.
in Vegas.
Yeah.
8 out of 10 in Vegas were ordered with a PDK.
Yeah,
so,
it's because guys that wear hoodies to work as a DJ don't know how to drive a stick, I think. Like, you got to tilt your head down. And,
yeah.
It's my buddy Deeb the Marshmallow. Okay, let's move on. Let's make some predictions on more cars. What's the next car on the list? We got to go.
All right, JP, just to piss you off, our friend Yuri selected this 1969 Porsche 911T.
What?
Please do not jump down my throat in the comments and tell me that is not a 1969 911T. Take a closer look. It is. Somebody has rebodied this car to be a G-body conversion. This is like a Back to Future joke, JP. They put cookie cutters and a whale tail spoiler on a 69T. Somebody arrest that Canadian. Holy God almighty. This is one of the funniest cars I've ever seen. JP, see if you could skip ahead to the the photos of the interior, because as bad as this outside is, it gets even worse on the inside. Take a look at this, JP. Oh. Look at those seats. Look at that steering wheel. Is that a Nardi? What is this thing? Holy God, John, this car, JP, Yuri could not wait for you to see it, and he wanted to hear you curse on the show live because this car is an absolute Frankenstein. Believe it or not, JP, it doesn't even have the 69T motor. They engine swapped for a 2-liter that they found in a 914-6. Let me do you a favor and tell you that this car is basically 40 horsepower down on the motor it was supposed to have come with, because the 914-6 2-liter flat 6 only makes about 100 or 110 horsepower stock. So this car, I mean, boy, what an uphill battle. Make matters worse, JP, it's on P-Car Market. And wait, there's more. It is also located out of Westmount, Quebec in Canada. 56,000 miles, true mileage unknown. I mean, JP, is there a more P-Car listing than this pile of junk? JP, I'm literally looking at the value of the car, like the value of a 69T. I'm looking at what we think the value might be on this car. And as I'm scrolling through it, I'm thinking, whoever buys this car would just be better off parting it out. Like, there's no value to the parts as a whole because of what they've done to ruin the car. And I actually think the real money would be made by a dismantler who would sell each piece of this car individually. The whale tail is worth $5,000. The cookie cutters will get you $1,200. The steering wheel will get you $400. The motor will get you $15,000. You know what I mean? Like, just part the sucker out. So JP, Yuri is trying to play a joke on you. What do you think of this car? How P-Car Market is this?
I love this car. This is the greatest car P-Car Market has ever tried to sell. Oh, man. Yeah, no, what do you do with this thing? I mean, isn't that an IROC tail, too? I mean, oh, God.
It's big.
Again, this thing is just so wrong. You know, and I look, I'm not going to clutch my pearls and be like, oh, it's not original. Oh, they forward dated. Oh, that's terrible. Da, da, da. You know, yeah, it's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't do. But the problem is, like, nothing that they did to this car makes it perform better. Like, there's nothing. All they did is add weight and reduce power, and aesthetically it looks bad too. Because, like, a lot of people would look at my slant nose and be just as I don't know, insulted or appalled as they would looking at this particular car. But at least with my crazy ass slant nose with an LS3 in it, you can say, well, okay, it may not be stock or look original at all or whatever, but performance-wise, this thing is going to blow the wheels off of almost anything. You know, you don't have that ability with this car. You're not really able, but I do think maybe, like, if the number is right, and that's really what it comes down to, there is a number where this car could actually be kind of fun. All right. I mean, if this car were cheap enough, it's still, I mean, look, it may have a 2-liter flat 6, but that's still better than, you know, a 1600 in a 912. It's still going to probably drive better or be more usable. So the first thing I would do if someone gave me this car, like, you know, if I didn't have to pay any money for it, you'd pull the rocker panels off. So you'd expose the oil line down the side if it has it, which probably doesn't, come to think of it. But, you know, at least pull the rocker panels off, pull the bumpers, and just find some really basic, you know, RS bumper covers or whatever, and pull the wing, and just slam the goddamn thing. And, you know, and then at least you have something that has a little bit more better performance than a 912. But that is all contingent on getting the car cheaply enough. And you could find another set of seats that aren't going to be as hideous as
it's
stupid.
It's in Canada. Even if somebody gave it to you, you'd be in the whole $4,000 to $6,000 just getting it home. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but it's worth more than that. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, how much would you pay for a beat up piece of crap but running and driving 912? That's really what this is. This is like better than a beat up 912. It's not a long hood. You know what it's really like? It's like a 76E 912. Yeah. You know, where you have the 2-liter Type 4. Does this one have a 5-speed at least? Is it a 5-speed?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I was trying to confirm that it was a 901 and 9915. Of course, P-Car Market doesn't bother to give you any information about what's on the car.
Yeah, it just says manual. That's brilliant.
Isn't that unbelievable? They don't even know. And what's crazy to me, JP, I'm going to digress here for just a quick second. We were banging on about about Doug DeMuro and not doing a good job of curating what's on his thing. Like I don't have a problem with PCAR listing this car. What I have a problem with is that this car is in Canada and it's protected by a reserve. Like if you're gonna bother to list this car, just run it no reserve. Like show some sack and tell people, yeah, we'll run your car as long as you give us a chance to sell it. Like this is a joke that this car is hiding behind a reserve. I mean, give me a break, man.
Nowhere in this listing does it say if it's a 4-speed or a 5-speed. Am I
or
missing something?
Or if it's a 901 or a 915.
No, it does say a 901, but that doesn't mean. 901. But they make 4-speed 901, so
yeah,
this is just an absolute shit show. There is rust in the floorboards. I mean it. Jeez. All right. Well, PCAR Market has literally sold burned to the ground 911s that were just like cars that were fire victims. What will this stupid G-body conversion car bring? What do you think?
Yeah. So JP, I want to tell everybody in the thing, if you're interested in laughing, this car used to be sunflower yellow. Go to the bucket of photos if you open this listing and go to photo number 49 where you can see all the sunflower yellow in the door jambs. It's hilarious. Just a bad. So it's not even in its original color.
It says it was Bahama yellow, which is a
Bahama
great
yellow.
color. That's
Bahama yellow.
A really so if somebody wanted to restore it, I guess there's some. You're really deep.
There you go. All right, JP. So the most irrelevant fact of the day is that our friends at Classic.com say that a 69 911T is worth $71,900. JP, I know you think that this car should be compared to a really bunk 914, and that might be good because my bid for this car is $14,901. And I'm not sure it will even get to there because it's going to cost you. You'd be in it over 20 grand getting it home to your home in the United States, bringing it in from Canada where this car is located. So JP, I am not confident my bid, or even if it got to my bid, that it would sell for that number because we don't know what the sell price will be until it winds up in the chum bucket. JP, $14,901 to you. What's your bid?
What did you say Classic.com said one of these is worth? A regular one?
71,000.
71,000. All right. So yeah, I mean, because it's like, if you start going, all right, let's restore it, it would cost $100,000 minimum to get this car back to something, I mean, you're basically backdating a car that's been forward dated. So you're bringing it back to what it was. I mean, what a pain in the ass. There's no way you're doing that for less than $100,000. So this car, I think, but I mean, driving cars that are this shape are worth $35,000. I mean, they just are. It's as crappy as this one is. I still think this thing's probably. I'm gonna go 31,911 and say it doesn't sell, but I do think that people will pay ridiculous money for anything that's shaped like a 911 as a hardtop. They just will. It's just crazy. But we shall see. Let us know what you guys think. And all right, let's do one more car before we get out of here.
All right, JP, really quickly, we're going to take a look.
Oh, and when you see Yuri, smack him in the face.
Give him a big hug for you. All right. Thank you, Yuri. Our next car is on Bring a Trailer. It is a single-family owned 1996 Mitsubishi Eclipse Spider GST with a 5-speed manual. Again, running on Bring a Trailer, listed out of Ladera Ranch, California, and showing just 25,000 miles from new. JP, did you know that this car makes 105 horsepower per liter? It's a 2-liter inline-4 turbocharged motor that makes 210 horsepower. These are all front-wheel drive, and I think they have crazy torque steer. But JP, we laugh about the rise in sort of attention and value and charm that the young timers have. Is there a more Radwood like hilarity car than the old Eclipse convertible, the Spider with the leather interior and the crazy front wheel drive that like you turn it and you floor it and the car wants to go straight and kill you? I remember these cars when they were new. They were very popular and they are all gone. So to see one that is basically bone stock, super low miles, in kind of an iconic rental car red color. There you go, JP. How Radwood is that? I think, if you're into JDM cars, if you're into vintage cars, this would be a really easy, I think, starting point with hopefully some Japanese reliability, unless my partner tells me that these cars are absolute garbage. I wouldn't think they're built well, but I also wouldn't think that this car would strand you on the side of the road either. Mitsubishi and Eagle were in partnership in those days. So it's really like two of the low points in the automotive world coming together to make you a bad candy bar. But there you go, JP. Bone stock, low miles, certainly not collectible, but man, you could spend a lot more money and not necessarily have any much more fun than 200 horsepower in a front wheel drive convertible. Could you? What do you think, JP? Yay or nay?
I did have one of those Eagle Talons for a little while, the coupes. That was the all-wheel drive one. It was pretty fun. But, okay, so the theme of the night, we didn't mean it to be like this, but it's kind of that young timer thing, right?
Yeah.
And, if you look at this car and then you consider how well that rusted out Alfa Spider did, I think that there's an opportunity for cheap, inexpensive, fun cars. We've already kind of established that. What makes a car collectible, right? Who is the buyer of collector cars? We say it over and over and over again. It's guys that are in a place in their life where they have disposable income and they can go out and buy the things that they wanted when they were young. Usually they're in their 40s and 50s. By the time you're in your 60s or 70s, you're looking at retirement and you're kind of conserving. But guys with disposable income in their 40s and 50s, in the early to mid 90s, this car was everywhere. You either had a Scirocco or a GTI or a Honda Prelude, or an Acura, Integra. And if you couldn't afford any of those, you went out and got an Eclipse or an Eagle. And these cars are shit. They're not going to break on you. I mean, you're right. They are kind of Japanese technology, but there's nothing good about these. It's a sporty looking, economy car. There's nothing sporty about this thing. These don't drive well. They're not particularly fast. They creak. Even with the hard tops, they're crappy. Oh, and then Brian mentions the CRX. I totally forgot the CRX, and that's a good point.
Yep.
Anyone that knew anything about car, it was either this or what was it, the Geostorm, where because if you were 20, if you were in a sophomore in college or whatever, you could go down to the Mitsubishi dealership or you could go down to the Geo dealership, and with a part-time job at Subway, halfway through college, they would lend you the money for one of these stupid things, right? As long as you hadn't blown out more than 5 or 6 credit cards, they were like, here, take the car. Whatever we got to do, just buy the goddamn thing. They were literally giving them away. Whereas if you wanted a cool car like the Corrado or the CRX, those cars were in demand, and they could get the premium for them. These were not getting premiums at any point. So but again, I think there's an opportunity here, because that person that is in their 40s right now, they either buy the car that they wanted and couldn't have, or they go back and get the car that they did have and don't have anymore, but have happy memories attached to it. I would love to buy a Fiat 850 Sport Spider. They're absolute pieces of crap. They're really no good, but I really want one, just because that was my first car, and it would be great to have one around. But it's not high on my list. But if one came around and popped up and it was in decent shape, yeah, why not? What's this car going to bring to some 44-year-old guy that had his first hand job in one of these?
Jesus, JP.
It's the end of the show. By this point, I've looked at the data. Yeah. Everyone's gone by now.
Yeah. All right, JP. Classic.com says that the Eclipse Spider GSTs are still bringing $13,200. Our car is currently sitting at a lowly $5,150, but it doesn't close for another 3 days. JP, these cars were $25,000 when they were brand new. Our car is sitting at $5,000 on just 3 bids. I initially put $14,000, but the more I look at this car and the scratches on it and all this, I don't know if it's even going to get there. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to leave it there. $14,000. I don't feel good about my bid, but I don't feel good about this car. So it kind of makes sense. JP, $14,000 to you. Where you at?
Yeah, I'll go $12,000. I think it fits right in there in that cheap, fun, something to drive around that isn't going to cost you a heck of a lot of money. This car may not be as cool a car is that Alfa Spider, but at least it doesn't have rust in the floorboards, and it will get you probably wherever you want to go. But there it is. All right, guys, let us know what you think this Eclipse will bring, and thanks for hanging out with us. Who do we have as a guest on Wednesday? We have a big guest, Deep.
Yeah, Sarah Lassick from 000 Magazine, who just spent the weekend in LA at the Toy and Literature Show, is going to be our third nerd. She's great. She does a lot for 000. She owns an air-cooled Porsche. The proof is in the pudding. So tune in on Wednesday, Sarah Lassick.
Awesome. That's going to be a great show. So make sure you guys tune in, stick around, tune in for that show on Wednesday night, 6:30 if we're on time. Maybe I'll be wearing a watch from, the new Aviator. Look at Michael Deeb's Aviator. That's so badass. All right, guys, we will see you Wednesday. Bye.